There are certain events that are seasonal in nature. The monarch butterflies return to Mexico each winter. The swallows return to San Juan Capistrano each March. The giant great white sharks return to Amity Island each July. And we, gentle listeners, each May must return to Horror Mexico, land of the luchador, the heroic superhuman wrestler who uses his masked powers for good and not for evil. Unless, of course, they are temporarily under the control of a mad scientist. This month, as last May, our guide and our gateway to Horror Mexico is Santo, the Saint, the man in the silver mask. And this month, he is going to fight very undead, but very beautiful vampire women. In this early entry into the Santo mythos, the 7th film out of the eventual 52 that would be made, the movie both continues the tropes and traditions of the luchador, while adding some serious production values which add to the atmospheric black and white. Let's get in our convertible, put the top down, blast some bossa nova music, grab a big gulp and some Slim Jims from the 7-Eleven, and head down to Horror Mexico, shall we? Yes, we shall. This is Bill Watches Movies, and I'm your host, Bill Mize. Welcome, gentle listeners, to Santo versus the Vampire Women. The music is spooky and atmospheric to match the black and white, and we're looking at an ancient castle complete with turrets, with the fog machines cranked up to 11 while we look at the credits. This is an Englishized version of Santo versus La Mujeres Vampiro, so they are trying to get away with calling Santo, the Saint, the man in the silver mask, Samson? Well, no, that's not going to happen in this podcast. It's bad enough that it's been overdubbed with what I am sure is a questionable translation of the film from Spanish into English, but I am not going to add insult to injury and call the man, the myth, the legend that is Santo, Samson. I do not want to alienate any of my Latino listeners, all 5 of them. It shall not stand. Okay, that out of the way, let's get on with the movie. We're looking at something out of Collinsport, and all we need is the Victoria Winters voiceover getting us all caught up on what shenanigans the Collins family is up to now. Especially that rapscallion Barnabas. I gotta say, though, that I am loving the black and white. Sure, Santo and sometimes Blue Demon or Mil Mascaras are wonderful in living Technicolor, especially in their 1960s and 1970s silk shirts, ascots, and tight polyester bell-bottom pants. But I am thinking that black and white is going to knock it out of the park. We are finally told that this English language version has been produced by someone called K. Gordon Murray. And well, now you know where to direct your letters of protest and great umbrage. We are also told that this English language version has been directed, and I'm using air quotes, by a gentleman called Manuel San Fernando. And if that isn't some made-up name, or at least the Mexican cinema version equivalent of Alan Smithy, well, then there you go. I encourage the estate of Manuel San Fernando to reach out to me and correct me. After the credits are through, we are taken inside the spooky castle, which is resplendent with dust-covered furniture, cobwebs, and an overdubbed hooting owl, who seems to be lost and confused as he sits on the mantel of the fireplace. The occasional bolt of lightning and roar of thunder really adds to the atmosphere. Also adding to the atmosphere is the shadow of several large bats who are also in the house and seem to be lacking a destination or a goal. The camera pans slowly across the living room toward another fireplace, and I guess one wasn't enough to warm up this crypt, and we see the portrait of a woman in a large gilded frame over the mantel. A small fancy nameplate on the ornate frame tells us that this is Rebecca, and the date is 1761. A sudden scream echoes throughout the castle, and we are taken someplace else with lots of cobwebs and the creak of a slowly opened coffin. There's someone inside, and we slowly zoom in to get a good look at her. She opens dark, bloodshot eyes, and they dart from left to right, getting a good look at her surroundings. Her skin is, well, you know how paint looks when it gets old and starts drying up and peeling and cracking? Yeah, that's her skin. It's like she left her moisturizing mask on for way too long. Long enough that it stopped moisturizing and started desiccating. We pan around the lair, and man, there are tons of upright coffins just standing around. It's like they ran out of real estate and figured out that it takes less room for them to stand up than to lie down. But there is one coffin that is different than the rest. 1, it's horizontal on the ground. 2, it doesn't have dust all over it. 3, it's got a fancy lid with a crown and a bat and a crescent moon all on it. It's very nice. Our girl with the bad skin moves slowly out of her coffin. Maybe she slept wrong or something. And I assume that because she's the first undead up, she's going to go make coffee for everyone or something, but no. She's got something to say to the expensive and tastefully decorated coffin that's not built out of shite wood.
Queen and mistress of the night, lady of darkness and mentor of the vampire women, you have rested 200 years now. You slumbered for centuries just as you are. Your master has not summoned you until now. The hour is here at last. You are to make the prophecies he laid out come true. He reigns in the dark dominion. He, your lordly husband, calls, O sovereign. All men are addicted to corruption and obligated to seek self-destruction. They have permitted us all to awaken and call out the monsters that reside on this earth.
Her exclamations and proclamations are a bit too loud for the area, so everyone else starts opening their coffins, giving themselves a scratch and a yawn, and head over to where all the commotion is going on. next to the shiny coffin. I guess our girl has got more to say now that she's got the entire group around her.
Celine, hear my cry. Let your immortal rays touch us. Give me the appearance that I'll need now. I must have beauty in order to fulfill my mission. You are the breath that gives life to my body. You are my spirit, and awaken your sleeping slaves as well. My servants.
Dang, that is a lot of talking and speechifying, but I guess it's supposed to be our exposition for this little undead sorority meeting. After the reading of the undead minutes, there's a few thunderbolts for dramatic effect, and we hear the sound of a wolf howling in the distance. This gets our girl's attention, and she raises her arms like she's one of the starfish people from Message from Space, and starts heading toward a very nicely carved set of stone stairs, and an exit perhaps, as there seems to be dim light and some fog or smoke in the opening. It actually leads up to another level where we have a basement area. And in this area, of course, there are cobwebs and dust, and there's no light because the Duke energy bill hasn't been paid in several hundred years, but there are 3 raised platforms. Now, on these platforms, there are 3 people chained down on them. Are they alive? Are they dead? No idea at this time. I assume they were the promised blood feast mentioned earlier. It's very convenient. It's like Uber Eats, but for vampire women. She walks past the platforms and then looks up toward a small circular hole in the wall where light from the full moon comes in, and again we hear the howl of a distant, lonely wolf. I guess this has inspired her to poetry or performance art because, yes, there is more exclaiming heading your way.
Sorina, honored sovereign of the vampire women, at last the moment has arrived when we must select your successor, so that you will be free again to return to the great depths of the earth, to occupy your throne at his side. Become as you were, to all mortal eyes, a queen of the most radiant beauty, because you are destined to scourge and seduce men. And you as well, my sister. I, Tundra, the one selected to order and guide you as priestess of vampires. I must carry out my mission. So, I will see that you are nourished with human blood. He is here. Listen to our cry, O inscrutable Lord of darkness. Imponderable King of witchcraft and black magic, protect us under your great powers. Render us invulnerable to the assault and attack of mortals. Shield our bodies and our eyes from the sign of the cross, and help us to avoid daylight. Our worst enemy is the sun. Don't make us touch fire that purifies all. Let this be your will, our Lord of Darkness.
Well, with that final request, there's an explosion and some smoke, and our old crone is suddenly turned into quite the looker, complete with tight-fitting evening dress, combed and styled dark hair, and a smoocher that is quite smoochable if I do say so myself. Our girl, she's Tundra, still has her cape on and decides that it's time for a wee bit of a walkabout and heads up the stairs, arms raised. About halfway up, She pauses and turns around to remind Queen Zorina that she needs some slaves to boss around, and hey, would you mind waking them up? We get a closer look at said slaves, and it's 3 big dudes who are also in need of a skincare regimen. As mentioned, they're chained down to the tables, and I guess that Queen Zorina has granted Tundra's wish, because they start turning into 3 big dudes who have better skin, bigger biceps, and bigger pecs, and might have been oiled down and given a set of fake fangs prior to calling out action. The 3 dudes, much better looking now, break their chains, rise up from the platforms, and follow Tundra up and out of the chamber. If you've got time to lean, you've got time to clean, as my wife likes to say. She leads the trio of hench monsters up one more level so that they can gaze upon the oil portrait of Rebecca 1761 and listen to some more of her exposition.
Look at her. 200 years ago, she was selected by the king of the Dark Dominions to succeed our great Zorina. It was your fault that she fled from the hand of my sister vampires. Yes, at that time an extraordinary girl, dedicated to a life of virtue, caused us to fail in our sacred duty. Her beauty and kindness were handed down to a descendant of hers. And so tonight you will all see her. When she has reached her 25th year, we must capture her so that she'll be here to take part in our great ritual. Remember, if you fail this time, I have great power and I will destroy you. You'll be converted into dust, understand?
We swear we will not fail you again, Tundra.
Zorina needs blood, and my sisters and I need it also. She needs young blood. That is our job tonight. Follow me, we'll search for human blood.
Well, at that, the 4 hold up their capes and turn into giant rubber bats on strings and fly out the conveniently open window to go forth and hunt for that young blood. As they exit the premises, the camera zooms in on the Rebecca 1761 portrait, and there's a blur and a cut, and then a refocus on another oil painting in a nice frame. And it's a portrait of a woman who looks the same as Rebecca 1761. The camera pans down, and we see the woman in a nice little dress, sitting at the piano and giving us a little of Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata. The piano itself is sitting in a large living room, done up in your standard modern 1960s grooviness. Imagine slightly uncomfortable chairs, curtains with geometric patterns, and lamps that look like Sputnik, and you've got it. The piano player's got a dreamy look in her eyes as the music seems to take her to another place. Across the room, there are 2 gentlemen, one older, your standard distinguished gentleman with black rimmed glasses and swept back gray hair and a trimmed mustache that would make Ricardo Montalban jealous. The other is a young man, kinda doughy, clean-shaven, with slicked back hair that makes me think that he has stock in the parent company of Brill Cream. He's smoking a cigarette and sitting on the arm of the older man's comfy chair, and he and the woman are giving each other the googly eyes, so I'm guessing he is the boyfriend or even fiancé of record here. The music and awkward glances across the room continue when we see, outside the large French doors of the living room that lead out into a patio, 4 large rubber bats flapping their wings and hovering like a V-22 Osprey. I guess their arms or their wings get tired, and one of them changes into the beautiful but crazy Tundra. To back up my claim of craziness, the camera zooms in on Tundra's eyes, and we've got some Lugosi in White Zombie, or even Dracula, wide-eyed mental command stuff going on. She's giving the piano player a hard, crazy, wide-eyed look. And of course, when we zoom over to the musician, she's getting a little bit woozy and starts to sway, and her eyes roll in the back of her head. Well, this just makes Tundra want to try even harder to do whatever she's doing. We get more eye zoomies and more head wobbling, as if her Aquanet-held bouffant was getting too heavy for her skull and neck to bear. She finally comes to the end of the piece, and as she hits the final note, a change comes over her. She stops swaying, stops giving old Brill-Cream Head the coquettish looks, and gets up off the bench, and she's got a different look in her eyes. The looks are like, I am either going to kill you, or I am going to make with the sexy times with you until you wither up like a corpse. It's one of those. She makes her way across the room, and instead of heading over to where old Brill-Cream is, she instead starts making her way toward the French doors where Tundra is waiting. The old duffer gets wind of this and heads over to the doors, and damn if he doesn't see Tundra and her helpers for a few seconds before they hold up their capes, turn into bats, and skedaddle away. Brill-Cream Head, a day late and $1 short, opens the door and hears the sound of flapping wings in the distance. Back inside, Brill-Cream, his name is George, decides to grab a hold of his main squeeze, Diana, and ask her just what the heck is going on here.
You're pale, Diana. What happened to you?
I don't know, George. But it all was so strange. All of a sudden, I heard a voice calling me from a tremendous distance.
There wasn't anything out there. Could have been a bird. I think I saw something fly.
It's most likely that you're nervous, Diana. You know, I bet it was a butterfly out there attracted to the light, and that's all.
I guess you're right. It was only my nerves. George, dear, you know tomorrow we announce our wedding plans during the party, and tomorrow's my birthday.
Right. And now that you're feeling better, darling, remember we're going out.
George, I'd prefer that Diana stay here in the house tonight.
Why, Professor?
I don't know really, but she's fatigued and better rest tonight.
Papa's telling the truth, dear. I'm a little tired, and I prefer to go to bed early. And tomorrow I'll feel much better, George. Is that okay?
All right, then, you win. Anyway, pretty soon you'll be using my name, and I'll give the orders around the house. Don't you agree, Professor?
Huh? Oh, yes, certainly, of course.
Good night, George.
Tomorrow you'll feel better.
I'm going up, Papa.
Get a good rest, darling.
Professor, I know something is worrying you. You're trying to hide it.
No, it's nothing. The trouble is that you're a little nervous also. You're imagining things.
Well, I don't know. You seem to be acting pretty strange tonight.
But that's quite natural. In a month, I'll be losing my daughter, and I'll be all alone in the house.
Sorry, but I don't agree with you, Professor. You're not going to be losing a daughter. On the contrary, you'll be gaining a son.
It's Inspector Andrews, sir. How are you, George?
Fine, thanks, Inspector.
Good evening, Professor.
Hello, Charles.
Tell me, Inspector, you working on an investigation or stopping a crime?
I just came to say hello to my dear old friend, Professor Roloff, and to say that since Diana's starting a new life, we can play chess every night now.
But you're coming to the masquerade ball, aren't you?
Yes, I guess so. I'll be coming as Sherlock Holmes. Although I haven't received my invitation as yet, unfortunately.
But that's why I asked you to come tonight. I wanted to give you the invitation in person, Inspector.
Well, I'll say good night. See you tomorrow, Inspector.
Goodbye for now, George.
See you tomorrow, Professor.
Sleep well, George.
The reason that Ricardo Montalban, a.k.a. Professor Roloff, was so disturbed, remember, is that he did get a pretty good glimpse of the craziness that was going on outside his French doors. Luckily, he's got Mexico's own trenchcoat-wearing Columbo wannabe, Inspector Charles Andrews, stopping by at just the right minute for some more plot advancement and possible exposition. Professor Roloff takes Detective Andrews into his very sweet little den/office, and they commence with the gabbing. Just fair warning, we could be here a while.
Please come into the private study, Charlie.
Now why all the mystery? I can see that you're anxious to speak to me.
You see, Diana is in terrible danger, but what's a good way to explain it to you?
But that's easy. Start by explaining.
I can't, Charles. I'm at a loss.
Be frank. I want to hear all the details. I'm to understand that Diana could be in danger, Professor. I've been summoned here because you hope I'll find an adequate way to protect her. Isn't that true? And nevertheless, you can't or won't tell me what is happening. How can you expect any help when I don't know who it is I must protect your daughter from?
Charles, I'm usually quite direct, and I don't like secrets, but in this case, I hesitate now because, you see, I'm not sure yet. That's about what you'll say.
Someone is trying to kidnap Diana so they can collect ransom from you. Come on now, speak up.
No, I swear it's not true, Charles. No, it's something far more terrible than death itself. It's horrifying. I'm at a loss. That's all I'm going to tell you now. Should you decide to help me, fine. If not, then leave me alone.
Now take it easy, Professor. I'll help you, and willingly. But how?
Tomorrow night, I'd like you to gather together some men, and good men, and come to the party, Charles. I mean to protect Diana.
Now look, if she's in danger, why not suspend the party?
That's impossible. Diana's very sentimental. It's only what the girl deserves. But at the same time, she can't know the facts either. The situation is desperate now.
But, Professor, let me know what's happening here, simply for Diana's good.
No, don't insist. I repeat, I can't say any more, Charles. Now, do me a favor. Leave me alone. I have work to get done.
Okay, so I'm definitely getting some mixed signals from the old professor there. Help me, leave me alone. My daughter's in danger. I can't tell you anything. Why are you still here? Dude, either poop or get off the pot, okay? You're wasting Columbo's time and ours. Roloff shows Andrews out the French doors, puts on his glasses, and proceeds to pacing and looking pensive and touching his chin and stroking it in a, very I'm so deep way. I was really hoping that the professor would unload on Columbo just so we could get this thing moving, but it looks like we're going to go in another direction as the professor sits down at his desk, grabs a magnifying glass, and decides to refresh his memory by reading an old, weathered, curled-up papyrus full of ancient writing and hieroglyphics that's conveniently been placed there, and get a little internal monologue going here.
At the end of 200 years, Tundra will seek revenge in one of Rebecca's descendants. This unfortunate young girl will inherit the beauty that her ancestor enjoyed. And when she becomes 21 years of age, she will be initiated into the black rituals of the vampire women to succeed Serena. On her left shoulder, she will carry the figure of a vampire, the unmistakable sign of her tragic destiny.
Okay, so we are definitely moving forward here. We know now that Diana is the chosen one, that her birthday is pretty important for reasons other than announcing her engagement to Doughboy George, that the professor knows about the collection of vampire women staying nearby, and finally, she's got a birthmark that we need to get a closer look at. We scoot upstairs to her lavishly decorated bedroom, and she's in her nightgown and sitting at the vanity, looking into the mirror. She does a little fluffing and shushing of her big hairdo, and then reaches up and pulls down her nightgown, revealing a very bat-shaped birthmark on her left shoulder. And by bat-shaped, I actually mean a bat. There's no denying it. I mean, this thing is bat-shaped enough that Adam West and Burt Ward could see it in the sky and assume that Commissioner Gordon wanted to see them in his office. She touches it absently, then covers it back up, the mission completed to confirm that the legend is true. And where the hell is Santo? Looking up into the vanity mirror, she sees the reflection of a small window behind her and the pale, pasty face of one of Tundra's henchmen, and of course, she begins to scream her fool head off. Downstairs, the professor's papyrus reading and pipe smoking is interrupted, and we just can't have that. So he puts his pipe down and runs as fast as an old man can to his daughter's bedroom. She's closed the curtains and pulled her nightgown tight around her neck, which is a standard 1950s female self-protection technique. Her dad comes into the room and is like, what's the matter, kitten? She runs into his arms, crying and a bit hysterical, talking about the face of the evil undead being that seemed to be spying on her in the window. And he's all like, kitten, calm down, and begins starting up the Consolatron 5000 while she wipes her eyes, careful not to smear her mascara. He also cranks up the gaslighting machine as he tells her, kitten, you didn't see anything. It's just your imagination. You're just tired. You're on your period. You're just a woman, and so on. Now, maybe a good old Sean Connery open-handed slap across her face would help, but this is the 1960s, and things may have advanced for women since the 1950s. She pushes back, telling him that she did see it, and that stuff downstairs at the piano with me in a trance, I didn't imagine that either, and what the hell is going on around here? He holds his ground and takes her and guides her toward her bed. Maybe a good night's sleep will help. Maybe a Midol will help. You've got to trust your old dad, kitten. Not to be guided into bed that easily, she then throws up the birthmark, telling him that she knows that it means something, and she knows that whenever she brought it up, he avoided the question, and he's like, you. This goes back and forth for a bit, and you can see the beginnings of Stockholm Syndrome setting in as she sits down on the bed, and he continues to make up explanations and excuses for all the weirdness that's suddenly happening at their house. She calms down a bit. He kisses her on the forehead and heads downstairs, back to his office, toot sweet, and gets busy. He closes the doors to the office, then heads over to a contraption against the wall. He pushes a button, and the large rabbit ears on top of the box start spinning in opposite directions, which lets us know immediately that this is some top-secret, very advanced sciencing gear. Behind his desk, we see a very nice TV screen, also surrounded with dials and buttons and knobs and such. He pushes or turns something, and the screen springs to life, throwing up something from the outer limits or the Twilight Zone as the contraption seems to be looking for a signal. It finds one, and we see a dwelling similar to the Batcave, in that it's got a lot of machinery and a lot of technology, and also beakers and test tubes and such. Professor Roloff picks up his microphone and then hits a button, and a large reel-to-reel tape recorder in the bat cave at the other end starts turning and, I assume, recording. It's like one of those large Radio Shack answering machines, only different. Once he sees that his transmission is being recorded, he starts talking.
This is Professor Roloff. I'm calling Sampson. This is Professor Roloff. Come in. Can you hear? It's most urgent, Sampson. I'll record the message. It's extremely urgent, and I need your help. Diane is in very grave danger. Please come to my place when you hear this message, Sampson. Since you're the only one that's able to protect my daughter.
Well, it seems that Roloff has a direct line to Santo. And yes, I know that he calls him Samson, but we ain't playing that game here. We've already had that discussion. And he's left the man in the silver mask a message about the danger that his daughter is in. And oh, can you please get back to me at the earliest? It turns out that there is a reason that Santo's answering machine is on. He's participating in his other day job, the one he does when he's not fighting werewolves, vampires, Nazis, aliens, or anyone or anything else bent on destroying the horror Mexico way of life. He's in the squared circle, and the announcer is doing his announcing thing.
We'll be seeing the main event with partners with only 2 falls permitted, and there is a time limit. In this corner, it's Caveman Wellington and Roz Mendoza. In this corner, the Black Shadow, and the man in the silver mask is Samson.
With the correct name, hollered by his beloved fans, still ringing in our ears, we are now treated to a few minutes of some wrestling daring-do. There's some grappling, and some punching, and some drop-kicking, and some half-Nelsoning, and some full Nelsoning, and occasionally someone lands on the mat, or is thrown into a turnbuckle, or even uses the ropes as a slingshot. Every blue moon, Santo's partner, the Black Shadow, is ganged up on by the 2 heels, and of course Santo, the champion of fair play and justice and the right of women to wear miniskirts and ride in his sweet convertible, ain't having it, so he jumps in and saves his partner's butt. Of course, in the end, Santo and his partner win, and the polite and well-dressed crowd applaud. He raises his hand in polite appreciation of their adoration. A few men get caught up in the celebration and jump into the ring and valiantly put the large man on their shoulders and carry him around a bit. It's interesting to see just how much time is devoted to this first match. It's almost 10 minutes in the ring from start to finish. And it's a reminder that these movies are basically wrestling shows that happen to include some incredulous plots surrounding them to embellish the legend and myth of Santo, the saint, the man in the silver mask. Later, outside a very tony nightclub, we see a valet, an awning, and the silhouette of a large rubber bat flapping its wings and eventually coming to a landing, just as a couple walks out, full of steak and salad and potatoes and a good wine, head toward their car. We get a shot of Tundra's eyes, narrowed in both focus and anger and jealousy, because she probably loves a good steak dinner, or did love a good steak dinner. as the lovebirds make their way to the passenger side of the automobile. I mean, he's got to open the door for her, right? She is set upon by Tundra, who gives her a cape-draped high karate chop to the neck. And the gentleman is given the same by a cape-wearing hench monster. The two fall to the ground, of course, and, well, dinner is served. Now, it's no steak, but it is warm, red, and juicy. Tundra chomps down on the woman's neck, and I gotta say, this woman has got a very fine set of fangs. They ain't playing around here in horror Mexico. The vampires around here are packing dental enamel. As the two vampires tuck in, the valet finally gets around to noticing this, feels that something just isn't right about it, and starts blowing his valet whistle, hoping, I guess, to get the attention of a nearby Bobby. The hench monsters and Tundra are startled by this shrill noise and interrupt their drinking to see what the hubbub is all about. It's at this time that our whistleblower, having seen too many Santo matches, decides that he wants to throw some hands as well and runs to the aid of the couple. The bloodsuckers have decided that they are going to take their meal to go, and the man and the woman are thrown over the shoulders of the two hench monsters, leaving the other one and Tundra to take care of the well-meaning but poorly equipped valet. Well, it turns out that there was a nearby La Policia, and his squat little mustache self comes running, pistolero drawn. The one hench monster puts a few more boots into the ribs of the prone valet, then takes off running just as the officer arrives. Tundra decides that she's just going to be evil and gives the poor little guy a heaping serving of the evil eyes, squinting them, and suddenly he's under her control because A, she's a hot vampire, and B, he's Guy. This mental punch in the brain brings him to a stop, and that allows her just enough time to turn into a large rubber bat and fly away, leaving our poor public servant standing there with a stupefied look on his face. Well, this murdering of lovebirds does not go unnoticed, even in horror Mexico, and the next thing you know, we have the woman, neck exposed, lying on a morgue table, with several police-type folks gathered around her, including Inspector Andrews, our Columbo stand-in, and the eyewitness beat cop.
These two blue marks close together on the victim's neck are what have me puzzled, Inspector. Besides that, we didn't find one drop of blood in the corpse. Why, you could swear that a vampire murdered the girl.
Hey, now that I think about it, I'll bet those monsters were vampires, Doc. And right after she attacked the girl, she changed into a vampire. She sucked her blood and then she began to change.
Take them along, boys, and put them under a week's detention.
But listen, Chief, listen, I'm not crazy, I tell you. It's true, I tell you, it's true. Those were vampires that I saw.
Are there any internal injuries, Doctor?
No, none, Inspector.
And those two blue holes there. Don't you really know what they are?
No, I don't. I can tell you one thing, and there's no mistake about it, my friend. I attribute these two holes to some strange animal whose species is unknown, and there's no way that I can determine it.
Well, that accounts for the woman, but what about her beau, the man who bought the assumed delicious steak dinner? Well, he's back at the castle of the vampire women, chained down on one of the hench monster tables and writhing in agony. Downstairs, in the cave of torches and coffins and vampire women, Tundra is having another meeting, and they are all gathered around the fancy-schmancy coffin again. She raises her cape, spreads her arms wide, and the rest of the girls follow suit. She furrows her brows and gives some high-intensity staring, and soon enough, the lid of the fancy coffin starts opening. Slowly, slowly it rises, and man, Tundra is giving it her telepathic all. And when it comes to a stop, we see another vampire woman inside, complete with crossed arms, evening gown, and terrible, terrible skin condition. The only difference is that this one seems to be holding a very nice little bat figurine in her hands, and she's wearing a very nice tiara. Maybe this is Queen Zarina. I mean, we'll see. They just don't give tiaras to anyone. Tundra points to the occupant of the death box and starts to speechifying.
Zarina, Queen of the Vampire Women, the hour for you to acquire your original beauty has arrived.
Because it's her turn at the spa, this gets her attention, and she rises up and is helped out of the coffin by a few of her henchwomen. Once she's up and out, she is steered toward a large stone-carved throne, again with a nice little bas-relief bat. She takes her place on the throne, while Tundra goes to a little indentation on the wall and plucks a very nice goblet off a stand placed there. She removes a snake that's there for some reason, just minding its own business, and puts it on the ground. Chalice in hand, she slowly walks up the stairs to the henchmonster room. The dinner club Lothario is still there, chained to the table, and she moves past him so that she and the chalice can bathe in the moonlight that's coming through the small window. She holds the chalice up, and why, yes, she does have more ritualizing to perform.
Celine, hear my cry. This is the moment. This is the moment to carry out the supreme sacrifice. We must have blood, and he is ready to die.
The full moon just keeps on shining. The clouds keep on moving, and I guess that means that everything is go for the bloodletting that's about to happen. The hot high priestess heads over to where our very, very nervous guy is. She hands the chalice to a nearby flunky and then proceeds to give their prisoner a very good chomp on the neck with her long, long fangs. His moan is half pain, half, hey, I kind of like this. After she's had her nip, the henchman brings the chalice around to her side and starts catching some blood, while the other henchmen have this like, what in the hell looks on their faces. Oh yeah, my brothers, this is happening, and you are in the middle of it. After Tundra has her offering chalice filled, she proceeds to walk slowly and regally back down to the waiting Zarina. The body having been drained and hopefully deader than a doornail, the henchmen unchain it, pick it up, and throw it into the awaiting funeral pyre that's been burning for quite some time. The body goes in, the flames momentarily rise, and well, that's that. Tundra is still slow-walking toward Queen Zarina, and the supreme commander of the vampire women, having seen the chalice, is holding her hands out gimme-gimme style, like a small child wanting a cookie. She's given the cup, and she drinks deep, being careful not to mess up her nails as she just got them did. The rest of the vampire women, gathered in a semicircle around the throne, look on as their queen hands the cup back to Tundra. I guess that was some good shit, because she gets a better dress, better skin, better hair, and even a better tiara almost immediately. And damn, she is the queen of the vampire women for a reason. She's got this Elizabeth Taylor eyes and sultry Sophia Loren everything else, if you know what I mean, and I know that you do. Looking around the room and getting her bearings, she sees her fellow vampire women, and as we know, they do not look good. But Queen Zarina is a benevolent dictator, and she orders Tundra to pass the cup around and give the rest of the girls a sip because they gotta represent. Tundra bows her head, and soon enough, Eucharistic style, the cup is handed around, and everyone gets pretty damn hot and pretty half undressed real quick, and this immediately becomes the vampire women sorority that you want, but not the one half you knuckleheads deserve. A few minutes later, they are all dressed in their white togas and lounging around, looking all vampire-y, when Queen Zarina starts with the questions of her high priestess.
You've seen the girl chosen as my successor?
Yes, Majesty.
And likewise, I have seen on her skin the mark that identifies her. The dark vampire. She is truly lovely, O Queen. Her beauty rivals yours. She will be a deserving successor. Tomorrow's her birthday. She'll be 21. And we all know the prophecy says that she is to stand in your august presence here when the ceremony starts, O Queen. In a very few moons, I am to terminate my reign. It is written that I am to return to the depths of the dark dominion. If you fail me again, my vengeance will know no limits. Hear us, O Queen who rules the night, sovereign of the vampire women. I shall not fail this time, I promise you.
After that vampire-laden interlude, we are whisked back to the desk of Professor Roloff, he of the amazing head of gray hair, black eyeglasses, and papyrus rolled up on his desk. He's looking very weary and tired, in a Sir Ian McKellen sort of way, and removes his glasses to give his eyes some rest from all his professoring. I would expect nothing less from someone whose daughter is getting prepped to be the next queen of the vampire women, I must say. That's gotta stress a man out and make him head for the tequila on a regular basis. While he's resting his eyes and trying to de-stress, our girl Tundra flaps her rubber wings for a few and then transforms into her vampire woman self outside his window. The hair on the back of his neck probably starts to stand up, and he looks over at the window and, yep, there's a scantily dressed hot vampire woman high priestess outside his window. He rises from his desk, still pretty incredulous at this scene, and heads over there. She doesn't flinch. She merely starts to squinting and giving him a fistful of mental mind control. But because he is a professor and used to lazy students and academic puffery, he is not as easy a mark as some random dude out on a dinner date. He fights back and gives her some holy words to send her on her way.
In God's name, I order you to disappear. Against him and his power, you are nothing.
That pretty much does it, and she gets all wide-eyed and scared and turns into a bat and flaps away. As she exits, Santo finally makes a damn appearance after evidently hearing the professor's message on his reel-to-reel answering machine. In contrast to Santo movies later on, he comes into the smart guy's study as if he were walking into the ring. He's got the mask, of course, but he's still in his boots, tights, bare barrel-chested, and a very sparkly cape. Despite this, Roloff is very happy to see the man in the silver mask, who is standing in the room, arms crossed, ready for action.
Fine, at last you got here, Samson.
I came as soon as I got your message, Professor. What's going on?
I think you'll recall that for years now I've been translating these crumbling old parchments here. They belong to my ancestors, and in which they announce the tragic destiny that awaits my daughter Diana.
No, I haven't forgotten. Tomorrow's the day, Professor. Diana's about to become of age. Have you found anything that will help? An important clue that could be used to stop those monsters when they try to take her?
I studied it, Samson, but the things I found out are not encouraging, and I fear that there's no hope for her. Here they affirm that according to the apocalypse, we're living at a time when things are perfect for the resurrection of monsters here on Earth. Since men are bent on wreaking destruction upon the world today, they'll heed their selfish desires and use the tremendous power that nature has given us.
Yes, nuclear energy.
But there's something worse than what I mentioned just now. I spoke to you about that strange and extraordinary lad who saved Rebecca's life. The documents say that he also would have a descendant, an outstanding young man of enormous strength, destined to hide his identity under a silver-colored mask, Samson. That extraordinary young man is obviously you. But I should tell you something else. According to the prophecies, even you might fail trying to protect Diana. All the evil they can muster is against you in this thing, and so you might be killed attempting to save my daughter.
Nevertheless, I have to continue. I have to go on the way my ancestors did to eliminate evil of all kinds. And human vampires are monsters that can never expose themselves to direct daylight. Surely they use a hideout of some kind as a refuge. And there possibly we could surprise and destroy them.
I know. It could be that these symbols here refer to their hideout. But in spite of all my efforts, Samson, I failed trying to decipher their hidden meaning.
Then I'll be ready for anything, so don't worry.
You're coming to the party to protect Diana, aren't you?
No, Professor. I have other plans, but I'll be responsible for Diana's safety.
Well, well, well. That's a lot to cover in a few minutes. We've got a prophecy, of course. We've got a nuclear power warning, which was common for the day. And finally, we have Santo himself as a part of that uncannily accurate prediction, right down to the silver mask. When you, as a wrestler, are mentioned in an ancient papyrus, you're pretty much moved into a corner and have to go fight evil. I mean, you sure couldn't give up and go into accounting or something less deadly and fatal such as monster killing. I am also wondering just what is on Santo's calendar that he can't come to the birthday party and protect Diana directly. Is there something on HBO? Is he washing his mask and cape? Is he hanging out with the Black Shadow and practicing wrestling moves? Hopefully it's something Diana protection adjacent. The next night, we are at the self-same birthday party, and it's full of dancing revelers, all in costume, except for Professor Roloff and Inspector Andrews. As the party-goers waltz around the living room, we see other stoic men, also in black suits, stationed around the room, providing more protection to Diana and her friends. They look out the window and, not having seen any large rubber bats, nod to the professor that all is well. Roloff heads over to a large set of French doors that open out into what I assume is a very large yard, and reminds his aged butler and some other random standing there that no one is to be admitted without an invitation. Mexican Alfred Pennyworth is like, "Very well, sir," and I guess that is it for now. The waltzing continues, and we see Diana dressed like some sort of princess, and George fitted up with some sort of toy soldier outfit. They seem to be having a good time, as young kids in costumes are wont to have. But I think that she really should give him a "my eyes are up here," but that's just me being an old man. Outside, Tundra is sneaking about because evidently she doesn't have an invitation, or, in keeping with the old lore, hasn't been invited in yet. We get the standard illuminated shot of her eyeballs, and, as if on cue, Diana suddenly stops dancing and is looking kind of peaked, a little wobbly. George asks if she is okay, and she's like, "Well, I am a bit dizzy. Let's sit down, please." Because he is the fiancé of record, he leads her over to a seat and they sit down. Back over at the black suit and tie section, Professor Roloff and Inspector Andrews are talking about the tragic turn of events that could befall his daughter.
My poor girl's happy. Just watch her face. She, of course, doesn't suspect that tonight could be really tragic for her.
Don't worry so much about it, Professor. Why do you think we're here? We'll stop any attack that they could begin.
After that type of reassurance, I can assume that the professor's fear has dissipated like the morning dew off a sun-kissed leaf. Either that, or he's about to gnaw the sucking end off that pipe of his. Outside stately Roloff Manor, we see one of Andrew's flunkies, complete with matching trench coat, wandering back and forth in front of the closed wrought iron gate of the premises. The large light bulbs on either side of the brick posts provides plenty of light for him to see any incoming hench monsters or scantily clad vampire high priestesses. But all the action is on the inside, it seems, because we then switch to an innocent, unsuspecting, and, more importantly, unnamed couple strolling the grounds when they are suddenly set upon by two cape-wearing henchpeople. The henchers high karate them, they fall to the ground, and then they straddle them and choke them out, and I gotta say it's pretty unnerving. After they are dead or unconscious, they are dragged a few feet behind some large spiny plants where Tundra is waiting for them. She treats herself like it's a Weight Watchers cheat day and goes for the throat of the young lady first. We get a quick shot of the unsuspecting Columbo at the front gate, where he is none the wiser, and then we are back to the midnight buffet. She orders the hench dudes to hide the bodies, as they'll be back later. Maybe this is a vampire equivalent to putting leftovers in saran wrap or a Ziploc. Yeah, I'll just put that in the fridge and I'll nosh on it later kind of thing. Inside, they are just as clueless as they are on the outside. The blue Danubing continues, and Diana must be feeling much better as she and her fiancé George are back on the dance floor. As the music plays, we scoot over to the front door where Mexican Alfred is in charge of admittance. And who should come waltzing in herself but Tundra, looking right at home in her tight-fitting white gown. Next to her is one of the henchmen, and this guy looks like a skinny Vin Diesel with a very nice Fonzie-style Brill-Cream hairdo. He's dressed in his standard hench cape, along with a sleeveless black turtleneck, which makes him look very German for some reason. But it's more Rammstein than Kraftwerk. She hands Mexican Alfred the invitation, and they walk in like they own the joint. After a few seconds to get a grip, Mexican Alfred looks closer at the invitation she probably filched from her earlier midnight snack and approaches her with the mix of superiority and trepidation that only a long-serving and long-suffering butler can perform. He starts to ask her a question, and she squints a bit and throws a wee bit of vampiric mind control at him, and he immediately shuts his yap and walks back to his post. The detective standing next to him asks if he's okay, and he just kind of nods dumbfounded. Tundra and Vin Dieter head over to the dance floor, assume the waltzing position, and commence to doing the twirly thing with the puny mortals. And still, Santo is nowhere to be found. We'll hopefully see the masked saint soon, but for now, let's you and I head over to the punch bowl and take a break from all this Viennese-induced costume madness, shall we?
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Hello, gentle listeners. Before we get back to Tundra, Vin Dieter, the costume shindig, and somewhere, hiding in the bushes perhaps, Santo, let's you and I talk a bit about anniversaries. The second anniversary is cotton, which is weird, unless you are someone who loves to wear nerdy t-shirts, then of course it makes perfect sense. August will be the second anniversary of this show, and I'd love to play some feedback during this time and listen to you as opposed to you listening to me. There's a couple of different ways you can do this. Number 1, you can record a message using SpeakPipe, aka the little red box on the side of the BillMakesPodcasts.com website. Second, you can fire up your voice recorder or Audacity or whatever software you want and record an MP3 and send it to me. My email address is bill@billmakespodcasts.com. Third, you can head over to billmakespodcast.com/contact and use the contact form to email me or call the phone number listed there and leave me a voicemail. You can send congratulations, well wishes, feedback on a recent show, a memory of the show you like, recommend a future movie, anything and everything. Next, you may be asking, well, Bill, it's all good and fine that you're celebrating an anniversary in August, but the more important question is, what movie are you going to be yapping about? Well, gentle listener, as before, I'm going to let you choose that as well. There is a poll up where you can vote for current suggestions that others have made, and also make a suggestion yourself. If you head over to billmakespodcast.com/Facebook, that will take you to the Bill Makes Podcasts Facebook group. Once you're there, knock on the door. I'll let you in, and you'll see the poll right there. Vote early and vote often. Last year, you voted for Quatermass and the Pit, and this year, so far, a movie called The World, the Flesh, and the Devil is winning. Let your voice be heard. Leave feedback. Vote for the movie. You have your orders. Okay, now that you've done all that, let's grab your milk duds, popcorn, and soda, because it's time to get back to our movie and find out if we're ever going to see Santo. I mean, his name is on the movie. I'd even settle for Blue Demon or Mil Moscatus right now. All right, here we go. When we last left our little adventure, our girl Tundra had sashayed into the birthday festivities with one of her vampiric caped goons on her arm and proceeded to make herself at home, what with the waltzing around and catching the eye of young fiancé of record, George. Diana quickly asks him who the heck is that, and he's like, no idea, but she is kinda cute. The woman in his arms doesn't cause a great deal of ruckus over this statement, but you can bet your bottom dollar that it is being filed away in the bottomless but easily accessed filing cabinet of her jealous little mind to be brought out and flung at him like a ninja star at any given moment in the future. George catches Tundra's eye as well, but not in a good way. She stops with her own blue Danubing, and she's got that if looks could kill look on her face. With Tundra, looks may not be able to kill, but they sure as heck could somewhat injure, what with her vampire high priestess powers and all. She levels her eye beams at him and gives with the glowering and gurring, but her aim might be a bit off, as she seems to hit Professor Roloff in the back of the head as he starts acting like he's got one of those Excedrin headaches. Detective Inspector Andrews does what all cops do and almost plants a small bag of pot or cocaine on the good doctor, but stops short and instead recommends a good strong drink from Mexican Isaac, the bartender. Roloff waves his pipe dismissively at the bartender and orders a cognac. Speaking of ladies, Tundra is still standing rock still on the waltz floor and still giving some good eye action to old George. After a second or two, she smiles, and she knows that because men are such simple creatures that he's in the boat, all she has to do is reel him in. Sure enough, the toy soldier is looking all goofy and her at the vampire priestess, and Diana is like, what the heck, dude? Tundra smiles. Diana looks over, and the ladies exchange that look. That means that it is on. Fisticuffs, scratching, pistols at dawn. Who knows? But it is definitely on, and it seems that Tundra has the supernatural upper hand at this time, and you can just tell that she would tear that man up. George continues being a doofus, and Diana continues being pissed, and Tundra continues with the mind control, and sure enough, the perhaps soon-to-be fiancé record breaks away from his girl, heads over to Tundra, and wraps himself in her voluptuous, experienced arms. Left alone, but not for long, Diana finds herself dancing with henchman Vin Diesel, and what do you know? This is certainly escalating quickly. Now, this is also certainly noticed by her dad, Professor Roloff, who sees all this commotion through his Remy Martin-induced haze. Recognizing Tundra as the girl of supernatural shenanigans, he tells Inspector Andrews to arrest that girl immediately. Andrews, because he's got nothing better to do and wants to assert himself as an authority figure in front of his men, pulls out his whistle and begins to blow, a high-pitched squeal filling the room and drowning out the never-ending Strauss. Tundra hears it, but she has zero f***s left to give. She pushes Milquetoast George aside and turns to face the collecting police officers. Because she's not stupid and has a greater mission at hand, she just turns and hits the handy light switch, which envelopes the entire room in abject darkness. Well, this causes much screaming and panicking, and the party-goers all break their embraces and start running around like chickens with their heads cut off. Except for vampiric henchman Vin Diesel, who, finding himself with the target, just sweeps her up off her feet and starts running away with her. Inspector Andrews, seeing this, points in the general direction in the darkness and hollers for someone to stop that man. Tundra, Vin Diesel, and the unconscious Diana head out the front door, followed by various cops, George, Inspector Andrews, and Professor Roloff. As the escapees skedaddle past the set of large spiny bushes, the other two caped henchmen come out and block the way of the posse, who come to a stop, intimidated by the capes and biceps and turtlenecks and such. Andrews tells his men to hold their fire, as they could hit Diana instead. They do so, and, sensing an advantage, the two henchmen, arms still raised, begin to advance toward the good guys. The good guys, sensing that they are no longer the alphas in the room, immediately ignore Andrew's order and start firing all the bullets at the advancing brutes. This commotion comes to the ears of the previously mentioned gatekeeper, who enters the grounds, heads toward the fight, and immediately gets his ass handed to him. The henchmen make pretty quick work of all the duffers, knocking them all to the ground, and then, as if to signify their superiority to the rest of the animal kingdom, raise their arms, spread their capes, and run away. It is magnificent. So now we've got Tundra leading the way, unconscious Diana carried by Vin Diesel, and two random and triumphant henchmen running toward the exit. Their escape journey is short-lived because a bright and shiny convertible pulls up outside at the black wrought iron gates. A tiny car driven by a very large man, Santo, the saint, the man in the silver mask, has finally arrived. He hops out of the car, Adam West style, runs through the open gate, meets the henchmen, and begins beating the crap out of them, Luchador style. He lays out two real quick, and then Vin Diesel drops Diana on the ground and gets in on the hands-throwing action. There's punching and drop-kicking and cape twirling, and while that is going on, Roloff finds his daughter on the ground and starts calling her name. Santo and the Ruffians, there's the name of your next punk rock band, continue their rapping, and soon enough, the trio of turtlenecks come to the conclusion that they are never going to win against the man, so they turn into large rubber bats and fly away. While the rest of the cops and heroes wake up and catch up to Roloff, Santo doesn't let the grass grow under his feet and immediately gives chase, running to his convertible, jumping over the door Burt Ward style, and zooming after them. We, of course, interrupt this momentum to get a closer look at the workings of the Horror Mexico police force. A siren sounds as a black and white patrol car pulls up to the wrought iron gate that is busier than Grand Central Station, and the tubby little guy salutes Andrews and tells him that he heard shots fired and wanted to know if he needed any help. Of course Andrews doesn't. He's got this vampiric massacre under control. You are free to go. And so he does, sirening away as he does so. Seconds later, Front Gate Trenchcoat catches up with Andrews and his detectives and goes, "Oh, by the way, I just found 2 corpses in the garden." With this, Andrews takes command, and by command, I mean he starts the cover-up.
Just a moment. Not a word about the things you saw here in the garden, or they'll put us in the booby hatch, I'm sure of that.
That's exactly what we were thinking.
Tell the jailers to free that little officer that informed us about the flying vampire. And call for an ambulance, too.
Right, Chief. Come on, boys.
While his underlings do his bidding, Andrews heads back to Roloff's house, and they have a meeting of the big brains with George and Diana.
I never would have believed it if I hadn't seen it with my own eyes.
Now you know why I hesitated to explain it to you.
Don't you have the slightest idea where to find the hideout that these creatures are living in?
Hello? This is the residence of Professor Roloff. Yes. For you, Charles.
Thank you. Yes? I'm the inspector. Go ahead. All right. I'll be there later. Another pair was attacked at the same spot as last night. They'd been in the nightclub also. The poor girl was killed, and they found the same small holes in her neck. Her escort was kidnapped. Now that's an idea. The crimes that were committed there these last 2 nights could furnish us with a clue. It's evident that they used that area to attract their victims in some way. I think we'll have to play all our cards this time. It will be morning pretty soon. But tomorrow night we'll go to that nightclub and we'll take Diana with us.
Are you out of your mind, Charles?
Under the circumstances, Diana's in just as much danger here as she would be in any other area. Now, don't worry. I'll send guards to surround the block and they won't cause suspicion. My best trained men are going to be in that nightclub, too.
Now look what happened out there in the garden tonight. And your men's bullets couldn't detain those infernal creatures, Charles.
Yes, but all in all, I don't think anything's going to happen to Diana. And on the other hand, it's quite possible that we'll find out who those monsters are and that diabolic female that leads them. It's a chance, but they could reveal their hideout. So now please have confidence in me, Professor. If you don't, you'll be running a great risk and you might not save Diana.
The inspector is right, Papa. Sooner or later, those monsters are going to find me. Why not try it as a last resort? Anything is preferable to continuing this nightmare.
The plan just might work, too, Professor.
You win. I'll go along with you.
No, Professor. You should stay here. And wait to hear from Sampson. Now try to get a little rest, Diana. The house is under constant guard.
Well, I've got to say that I don't have a great deal of confidence in Andrew's highly trained men, because just as he mentioned taking Diana to the nightclub where the previous attack happened, who do you think happened to be passing by the window? Why, yes, it's Tundra, vampire high priestess, and not a bad waltzer. So, yeah, I think that we can see that this whole nightclub trap might go sideways rather quickly. Speaking of going sideways, Tundra has finally sashayed back to the underground lair of Queen Zarina, who seems to be content sitting in her stone throne, as opposed to maybe walking around the very nice house right upstairs. Tundra enters the throne room, where the queen is sitting, and is surrounded by her other toga-clad vampire sycophants, and Zarina immediately begins pointing the royal finger and placing blame.
You have failed me once again, Tundra. There is a terrible enemy in our way, Zarina. His name is Samson, and he is to blame. The girl that was chosen as your successor was in our power when he got there tonight. But tomorrow he'll be dead, Zarina. This I swear in the name of your husband, the king of the Dark Dominion. You know I must terminate my reign soon. So tomorrow you are to have my successor here. My vengeance is cruel and terrible. Take heed, or you, as well as your sisters, will be changed to dust. Give me another opportunity. I shall not fail again. Tundra, I wish to see my successor tonight. Take me to her. You order and I obey, Sovereign.
Well, after giving Tundra down the road, and pointing her scepter, and blasting two sycophants into dust just to make an example, it seems that Queen Zarina is going to get out and about and do some vampire queening and such. While she goes and powders her undead nose, we head over to the nightclub and see a fedora and trench-coated member of Horror Mexico's finest smoking a cigarette and pacing back and forth, looking out for anything unusual, like the undead dressed in tight, revealing togas. Inside, Andrews, George, and Diana watch a very slick number play the piano and do some crooning. It's the only part of the film that hasn't been dubbed and is available in the original tongue, so I have no idea what he's singing about because I haven't had any Spanish since 9th grade. A white-jacketed waiter comes and tells Andrews that he has a phone call. The detective takes his leave, and then there were two. They watch Spanish Sinatra sing a bit, and then Andrews comes back and reports that the call was from Professor Roloff. He hasn't heard from Santo yet, and the old duffer is getting worried. Andrews tells the couple that Santo is wrestling at the arena tonight. I mean, a man's gotta make a living, and maybe, just maybe, he'll be in touch after that. This, of course, is our cue to head over to the arena and watch some large dudes in Speedos rub up against each other. It's a preliminary match in the ring now, two randoms that you really can't tell apart. So we head into the dressing room of the masked man who's going to be squaring off against the man in the silver mask in about an hour. Even though he's fully dressed and masked, he's a bit tired and knows he's going to need all his energy against Santo, the way that the Washington Generals always need their energy to go up against the Harlem Globetrotters. He lies down and tells his trainer to lock the door behind him, as he's going to get 40 winks before the match. The trainer, Mickey or something like that, does as he is told and exits stage left. While our unknown Lucador rests, a large rubber bat flaps its wings and comes in through the small bathroom window. It's not henchman Vin Diesel. This one is more henchman Lee Harvey Oswald, if the assumed assassin was on the juice and in the gym 7 days a week. He walks into the napping room from the bathroom, making sure to bump up against a nearby chair. This wakes our wrestler up. He doesn't say a word. He doesn't ask any questions. They just sort of silently walk toward each other. Are they going to kiss? Well, no. They're going to fight for a few seconds. Vampire Oswald gives a few high karates in the breadbasket and the neck, and the masked man goes down, and the henchman proceeds to choke him right out dead. After his act of murder, the big bruiser picks up the wrestler, throws him over his shoulder, and carries him into the bathroom? Okay. We thankfully cut away from whatever the hell is going on there to the two randoms in the ring. There's some punching and some kicking and some crowd hollering, and then we're back. The trainer unlocks the locked door and tells whomever is masked up and leotarded up on the bed that they're next. The wrestler doesn't say a word. He just gets up, lets the trainer wrap his cape around him, but not the vampiric cape, and they are out the door and heading toward the ring and Santa. The vampire wrestler enters the ring to jeers and boos. Santo, of course, enters the ring to cheers and chanting of his name. This is to be expected. To give you a little of the wrestling flavor, let's go to the ring announcer.
3 falls are allowed, and there is no time limit tonight. We are seeing the main event of the evening. In this corner here, the Black Mask, the challenger. And here in this corner, the man in the silver mask is Samson, the champion!
The two gentlemen, having been introduced, approach the center ring, get the instructions from the referee in the white shirt and black slacks, then head back to their respective corners to take off their capes. Santos' cape is very busy. It's like it fell off the back of Liberace's moving van. The referee gives the signal, and a bell doesn't ring, and I'm pretty surprised. After years of watching Gordon Soley and championship wrestling from Florida in the 70s, I thought I had this wrestling thing down, but no. A high, shrilled whistle, not unlike the one blown by Inspector Andrews, fills the auditorium, and we have wrestling sign. I'll let you use your imagination for the most part, as the two gargantuas go back and forth with the punching and kicking and throwing and jumping. There's jeering and there's cheering, depending on who's got the upper hand. About 3 to 4 minutes later, we have a pin, and it ain't Santa. The vampire henchman does a hell of a lot of high karate chops, and then gets Santo on his back, and he chokes him out, as these hench people seem to want to do. The referee raises the challenger's hand, and Santo, he ain't moving at all. Some guy in Santo's corner drags the man back to his corner and slaps him awake, wondering aloud what the heck is going on here. It's almost like the guy wants to kill Santo. Santo's like, man, that's not the Black Mask. The Black Mask doesn't know high karate, and this guy does, and he could kill me with one blow.
Hey, phrasing!
The corner man tries to dissuade the man in the silver mask from going back for the next round. But Santo is, well, Santo, and he's not built like that. He was warned about this, and he's going to see it through to the end. The trainer continues rubbing Santo, trying to bring life back to his karate-damaged body. We get a whistle again, and the two are back at it again. The second verse is the same as the first, and we're throwing, punching, gouging, twisting, flying, and such. The vampire gets thrown out of the ring, so Santo must not be feeling that bad. But we mustn't let that fool us into a false sense of security, for before you know it, the vampire has the upper hand and is mere inches away from ripping Santo's mask off, and you know that is something that can be attempted each movie, but must never happen, because, you know, he's Santo. He's like the Lone Ranger, only different, and there is silver involved. A minute later, Santo has the vampire in what's called a camel clutch. The vampire is face down on the mat, and Santo is straddling his back and pulling the guy's head up by the chin. This allows Santo to return the favor of the mask pulling, and he succeeds, revealing that the black mask is indeed a werewolf? That's right, gentle listeners. We've got an oiled up, hairless wrestler with the face of Lon Chaney Jr., or Lawrence Talbot if you prefer, and let's just say that the whole damn place panics while Santo just kind of stands there and goes, "What the heck?" No one knows what to do, so the uniformed cops there start earning some of their extra off-duty overtime, decide to bum rush the ring, and put some boots upside the werewolf's head. Good luck with that, my friends. There's punching and high karateing, and finally they corner the lycanthrope in a corner, and the one policia gets the idea to just put a few bullets in him because, you know, resisting arrest and all that, and so he does. 3 bullets later, the Wolfman is not even fazed by this and decides to start clawing at the attempted gunman, and the fracas begins anew, but it doesn't last long, as the vampire slash werewolf slash wrestler finally decides that discretion is the better part of valor and changes into a giant rubber bat and flies away. Well, ain't that a pip? Meanwhile, back at the nightclub, remember the nightclub Trap, and I'm using my fingers to make air quotes over the word trap. Mexican Sinatra is finally finishing up the extended mix of his song, and Diana, George, and a very depressed-looking Inspector Andrews are still at the table that should really only seat 2. Diana was hoping for some quality PG-rated time with her doughy man, so she starts getting a little huffy with Inspector Third Wheel.
Look, it's very late, Inspector, and I'm starting to get tired, so what's the use of waiting?
Just a while longer, until daylight. It's safer, believe me.
Daylight? Dang. The only people left at a nightclub when daylight strikes are hobos, pros without customers, and people who accidentally passed out somewhere due to too much X and just woke up. Well, it looks like Diana might not be bored that much longer, because it goes unnoticed that 2 very large rubber bats come winging their way into the club and change into the curvy forms of Tundra and Queen Zarina. They walk their toga-clad curves over to a table and sit down. Tundra has a worried look on her face, one of those, damn, I hope I don't lose my job over this, and the Queen has a, I could kill all of you without even breaking a sweat look. At the table, the waiter lights their candle, and goodness only knows what the heck the Queen of the Vampires orders, but the waiter walks away. Tundra points out the table where Diana, George, and Andrews are sitting, and tells the Z-Girl that Diana is her chosen successor, and man, she really does look like that painting, doesn't she? Diana, future Queen of the Vampires, catches some eyes on her and pulls out her saucer-sized compact and mirror to get a good look without getting an obvious look. She tilts the mirror just right and gets 2 eyeballs full of what the vampires really look like, breaking one of the ironclad rules of vampirism that the vampire can't be reflected in a mirror. We go against this rule to show that those chicks still got skin problems, man. Yes, the mirror reveals that both women really need some moisturizer and some Oxy-10 and maybe a wee bit of Botox. Because that just ain't right, Diana hands the mirror over to Inspector Andrews and tells him to have a look-see. He does, and he sees the exact same Instagram filters that she did, but this time Diana and Zarina catch them looking, panic a wee bit, then one of them gives the mirror some eye-narrowing vampire mind stuff, and the mirror breaks into a dozen or more pieces. The next time the inspector looks at the table, there's nothing there but a puff of smoke. And I'm thinking, why don't they use that more often, rather than flapping around all bat-like and attracting attention to themselves? It's time to mobilize the gathered plainclothes detectives. So Andrews gets out his dog whistle and starts blowing it, and the shrill call cuts through the elevator-based piano music, and all his men quit nursing their whiskeys or whatever and turn around. Andrews points to the table and hollers, "Arrest those 2 women!" And yeah, that goes about as well as you anticipate because puff of smoke, that's why. George, Diana, Andrews, and the rest run out the front door, and the confused doorman/valet wonders what the heck is going on. Andrews is still blowing the damn whistle, and this gets the attention of a Mexican equivalent of Tootie and Muldoon, who crank up the car and pull up at the entrance of the nightclub where everyone is gathered, and the inspector starts giving orders.
Did you see 2 women come out? They must be around here. Surround the whole area. I want to search thoroughly, understand? You 2 stay here with us. We have to give this young lady protection. And keep your eyes open.
Yeah, Tundra is still on her 1,000-year probationary period, I guess.